All right, welcome to a new episode of Farm Like a Hero, folks. I'm Richard Perkins. Today I'm here with Richard Park, who's run Sizer Farm for the last 30 years in Kendal in northern UK. It's a mixed farm, around 150 hectares, with 170 dairy cows, are selling more milk, actually, available at the farm shop via a vending machine, as well as pastured egg mobile and a couple of hundred sheep. The farm's got a bustling award-winning farm shop and cafe and offers camping with proximity to the Lake District and the Yorkshire Dales National Parks. 5 members of the family are running the total businesses that make up the Sizer Farm, and there's more than 50 local people employed. So lots to talk about today. Richard, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us.
Yeah, hello Richard. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd love to hear about the history of the place, because as far as I understand, it's been farmed there since the 13th century and would have been supplying food to the castle. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, so it's part of the Sizer estate and belonged to the Strickland family. So they inherited it in, like you said, the 13th century. Jumping forward quite a way to the 1950s, it was handed over to the National Trust, which is a UK charity that owns a lot of land and property. And we came here in 1980, and so my parents took on the tenancy. It's a good tenancy. We've got a 3-generational successional tenancy, so as long as we meet all the criteria, then I'm the 2nd generation. So it gives us a security that allows us to invest. And I mean, we treat it as our own.
And so you're running quite a complex operation in a way, but you're mainly responsible for the farm operations. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So I came back from college. I went to agricultural college in the mid-1980s. Down in Bedfordshire, which is in southern England. So that was interesting for me. I grew up on a dairy farm not too far away from here, and so all I'd ever known was dairy cows and grassland. So I went down there and people were arable farming, and I worked on the Welsh borders for a year as well, which is actually the only time I've ever worked for anybody else. So that was a typical. They had beef and sheep, and they grew some crops for their own use. They were very self-sufficient, actually. They grew all their own vegetables. They had a cider orchard, and that sort of exposed me to some really interesting things that I hadn't seen before. And so I came back from college, and I was working with my father, and we were in the 1980s. We had milk quotas, which limited the amount of milk that we could produce, and it sort of upset the plans that my parents had, in that they couldn't produce the level of milk that they wanted to do. So we started then looking at diversifying the business, and we converted some buildings into a horse livery. And I did a thesis on pick your own strawberries when I was down in Bedfordshire, because that was quite common down there at the time. And when I came back, that's one of the sort of first things that I got involved with, was developing this pick your own strawberry enterprise. And it was that sort of set us on the route to having the farm shop. People came onto the farm. We're right next to a busy main road into the English Lake District, and sort of suddenly realised that the potential of that road, from being a bit of a nuisance sort of farming wise, was actually bringing a lot of passing customers. And on the back of the pick your own strawberries, people were asking for ice cream. Do we have a toilet? Can they get a cup of tea? And so my parents then started looking at the possibility of opening a farm shop, which they did in 1990, which I guess is when I sort of took over the management, sort of more of a sort of full-time management of the farming side of the operation. And so we've done various things over the years. We could talk about that. Some have been very successful, others have been less so, and actually cost us quite a lot of money. But I think that's valuable. Not everything you do works, and you've got to be sort of prepared for that when you launch into something new.
Well, I also know that you're really you know, it's got to be said, you've been farming for more years than a lot of the people coming into this field have been alive. So I really want to dig back to some of that experience and some of the history, because I know you're really in touch with the history of how things have changed. And obviously, as a commodity farmer, I think you're producing over 1 million litres of milk a year.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back and hear a bit more about how that's affected things, because I think a lot of people coming into this field that don't have farming experience don't really understand how those systems work. But I'd like to, before that, just ask you, like, as someone with decades of experience and growing up around farming, it was a couple of years ago you came here to a training, and you also that year did holistic management training in the UK, and you said that was really impactful for you. So I'd love to hear a bit about your journey of rediscovery with things there. Like, if you'd tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so that I mean, I've been a really, you know, when I was a little boy, you know, I could never think of anything else I wanted to do. I always wanted to farm, you know, and I had a toy farm stuff, and you know, that's really all I wanted to do. You know, it might be narrow-minded, but that's what I grew up with. So I've always been really passionate about farming, and I came into it and followed really the when I was at college. It was on the back end of what had been a huge investment by government into agriculture to increase production. It was very, very focused on increasing production, and this was on the back of the sort of rationing during the Second World War, and sort of really rampant modernisation of agriculture. So a lot of the inputs in terms of fertilizers, a lot of drainage, a lot of intensification of livestock, and those are the systems I learnt about. And my dairying really was similar in that we went from keeping cows. We probably weren't intensive as some, but you know, we were using a lot of fertilizer. My father was an ICI costed farm, so ICI manufactured fertilizers. And as was my grandfather, actually, not the grandfather here, it's on my mother's side, and that was sort of during the 1960s. And I was sort of on the tail end of that. But as I came out of college, that sort of all disappeared, and agriculture was left to its own devices, really, and struggled in some ways to make money. And I was really hit in the mid 2000s, so 2014-15, with a crisis in particularly dairying, where the milk price just went through the floor. So we had 2 years where we were losing money. Now, dairying is a 7-day a week. You know, it's a full-on activity, and to be working as hard as you do and not making any money was really hard. And coming out of that, I just wanted to sort of restructure the farm, but wasn't really sure which direction to go. And we have actually previously been organic, and there was a letter that came through from the organic cooperative in this country, OMSCO, saying they were looking for new supplies. And I didn't bin it, I just filed it away. And I got that out and thought, well, when I was organic previously, I got myself in a bit of a pickle with the system and found it quite difficult to run. And I didn't want to get into the same sort of predicament. And I also started getting quite more interested in soils, and came across it was a little conference near to here that was run by an organisation called 3LM, who have holistic Savoury Institute trainers in this part of the UK. And me and my sister Alison, who manages the shop, went up there, and it was entitled "Every Family Needs a Farmer," and it had some good speakers, and they also offered 3 days sort of introduction to holistic management. And it was actually my sister Alison said, "Oh, we should do this." Well, to be honest, I hadn't really done any sort of anything like that since I was at college. Not sort of sitting down and you had to sort of, you know, looking at goals and context and and stuff that I just felt a little bit uncomfortable with it all, really. But the trainers were very good, and after we did the initial 3 days, then they said they were offering a full course, which we actually took up. Me and Alison did that course, and we did it here, so it was nearly like a 1-to-1, and it was over a month, not every day, but over the month, and really going into the holistic management and how it affects the land and people, the business, and really opened up things that I was just not aware of, and then I was looking. It was YouTube. I came across yourself, and I was interested in what you were doing, particularly on the business side. I really admired your focus on not just what you're doing, but you had to stack up sort of business wise, and because I think it was my feeling that some people in that field weren't particularly business focused. So I did the course with you, and that period, that 2017, was quite transformational in my thought process and how I sort of view things, look at the land, how I can read the land, how I view problem solving, and it's it's doing so good. It's like sort of learning again, and starting to learn new things again, and there's so much to learn, and then implementing it into our business that we have here.
Oh, it's really wonderful to hear that. Is that kind of a scary process, or is it an exciting process, or both?
It's both. It's getting my head around the holistic management stuff, in particular, how that fits in, because the sort of first introduction was, well, yeah, that's fine for a dry, arid environment, and you can sort of see it working there, but how does that fit into the sort of the cool, temperate environment that we farm in, and how can some of those principles be adopted? How can I adopt those into what I'm doing? I'm a person who's probably I'm a bit of a crash on sort of a person. I run the business, the farming business, and it was quite a drawback earlier on in that I felt I didn't really have anybody to not guide me, but I very much had to make the decisions on my own, and I used a good friend who's a consultant, and he sort of helped me with that. But now I've a lot more confidence, but so I'm not particularly good at sort of discussing ideas with people. I just have an idea and then just tend to crash on and try it. So perhaps a little bit reckless like that. So I'm certainly open for trying new things, and people. Nobody's ever been critical. And none of my farming friends have really been critical. I think they're actually really quite interested, and they're the sort of critical friends. They'll ask, well, why is that? Why are you doing that? Or how does that work? And I did a few talks. I've done quite a few talks over the years explaining holistic management. And the first few I did, I really found it really difficult to put the principles across. But finding that a little bit easier now, because I'm putting them into practice now.